I have some free advice for you, and that is do not sit down at a computer and Google modern day Proverbs / life hacks unless you have 7 hours to spare. Because you can discover rabbit holes that you can disappear down and vanish for weeks. I discovered actually one that I can't get out of my head, and actually one that I found that I'm embarrassingly trying, that you don't need to buy firelighters. Instead, when you use your tumble dryer, you collect the lint from the lint filter and you put it in an old toilet roll, and this works perfectly exactly the same as a firelighter. And embarrassingly, I used my tumble dryer this week on the day that it was pouring with rain, and I went to throw the lint away, and I remembered I'd read this, and I saved it. So that's sort of a little embarrassing. But everyone, it seems, has advice for us these days. Everyone has suggestions on how we should live well, life hacks. So many of these articles that you find when you look for them online, they'll start with a subject line that will say something like, this lady discovered this secret. You'll never believe what happened next. And then, of course, you have to go and click it to find out what happens. And you read it, and there's nothing amazing or surprising. And you realize you've just been clickbaited. And then you look up, and you were only planning to sit there for 2 hours, and suddenly 7 hours has passed. It's a bit embarrassing. But, you know, there are lots of advice that is out there that's worth listening to. I'm sure there were sentences that maybe your parents told you when you were young that still stick in your head now. Or I remember being at university, and one of my university lecturers said, you only have so many bullets. And we were like, what are you talking about? And he said, there's a song that we sing sometimes in church, and he said, and I hate it. He said, I don't agree with the theology in it. He says, I think it's a terrible tune. I won't mention the song because I'm sure some of you know it. He said, I think it's got no rhythm. He said, everything about it is just wrong. And he said, and I'm sure because I'm a theology lecturer at an Adventist university, he said, I'm sure if I went to town about this and said, we should cancel this song and we shouldn't sing it anymore, he said, well, probably I could get them to stop singing it. But he said, I know I've only got so many bullets. And he said, I'm not going to waste one of my bullets on this song. It's not worth it for me. And, you know, and that illustration has stuck with me. Like, that's true. When I want to think about battling something in life, I remember him saying, you only have so many bullets. Is this something you want to go fight for? Or is this something that you can let go? So, you know, there's lots of good advice in the world. So why am I talking about bullets? Why am I talking about lint from a tumble dryer? Like, I thought this is supposed to be church. Isn't that church? We're supposed to talk about God and the Bible and religious things like that. Well, I came across this quote this week, which I think helps us to understand why this sort of stuff matters. So most people think that what's written in the Bible is mostly to do with getting people to heaven, getting right with God, saving their eternal souls. It does have to do with that, of course, but not mostly. It is equally concerned with living on this earth, living well, living in robust sanity. In our scriptures, heaven is not the primary concern to which earth is a tag-along afterthought. On earth, as it is in heaven, is Jesus' prayer. Wisdom is the biblical term for this on earth as it is in heaven, everyday living. Wisdom is the art of living skillfully in whatever actual conditions we find ourselves. It has virtually nothing to do with information as such, with knowledge as such. A college degree is no certification of wisdom, nor is it primarily concerned with keeping us out of moral mud puddles, although it does have a profound moral effect upon us. Wisdom has to do with becoming skillful in honoring our parents and raising our children, handling our money and conducting our sexual lives, going to work and exercising leadership, using words well and treating friends kindly, eating and drinking healthily, cultivating emotions within ourselves and attitudes towards others that make for peace. Threaded through all these items is the insistence that the way we think of and respond to God is the most practical thing we do. Which is why I'm really excited that we're starting off a new year with a look on a series on the book of Proverbs. Proverbs is all about how to live well in God's good world. And it's not law. It's not thou shalt do this and this and this. But it is the accumulated advice of generations of how to live well in God's good world. And God cares about how we live. God cares massively about how we live. Not just the God and the salvation thing, which matters hugely, of course, but how do we live day in and day out? Well, I showed that video to you at the start of the program because actually, if you watch that video, you've got now hopefully a really good understanding of what the book of Proverbs is all about, the big picture of Proverbs. And during the course of this series, we'll dive into a lot more detail. I watched the video and I really liked it, and I was going to take stuff out of it and preach on it, but I thought it actually says it better than I could say it. So I showed you the video and I shortened my sermon. So I do want to, though, pick up on a couple of points that the video brought out because I think it's really important to note. The first thing I want to say is that Proverbs are probabilities, okay? So this book must be read in the context of the book of Job and the book of Ecclesiastes. We don't want to be naive when we read Proverbs and read a proverb and go, oh, this is a guarantee that God's going to turn everything out great for us. And the video illustrated a couple of Bible texts there that, that talk about if you're a good person and you follow the Lord, you'll live long and have a good life. We know that that might be true, but we can all think of a lot of people where that hasn't happened, where accidents have happened, where young people have been in car accidents and, terrible things have happened. It's not a guarantee. It's a here you go. Proverbs are probabilities. A really important point because we don't want to get into a airy-fairy Christianity of saying, if we love God, then God will bless us and our life will be happy, because that's not reality, okay? Also, not only can we get distracted by that, but also if we think of them as facts, then we can start to be judgmental about each other. One of the texts that the video referenced was, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. But we all know young people who've been brought up in the knowledge of God who have chosen not to follow God when they've got older. Now, if this was a guarantee, then that might cause you to look at the parents and go, well, you obviously didn't bring them up right, okay? And that's just not true, okay? So it's really important that we start Proverbs and we get the framework right before we start. Also, the video made the point that they're not promises. They're not guarantees, okay? So they're two important things to remember as we start our journey into the book of Proverbs. And also, one other point that they made, which I loved, is that biblical wisdom is an action word. So the biblical word for wisdom is the word chokhmah. And if you want to say it, you have to clear your throat. It's got that sound in it. Yes, well done. Okay, it's not a sound that we usually hear in the English language, but it's got that at the beginning, chokhmah. And it's an action word in that it's not just head knowledge. Chokhmah implies that we've done something with the head knowledge, that we've taken action. And an example that was mentioned in the video comes from the book of Exodus. Now, this is where Moses starts the building of the tabernacle in the wilderness. And there it says in Exodus chapter 31, see, I have chosen Bezalel, son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom. And yet his job was to build the temple, the tabernacle, sorry. And you'd think, well, surely he needs craftsmanship. He doesn't need wisdom. And yet to their minds, like, it's an action, it's skill, it's ability that is what wisdom is all about. You know, there are a lot of other facts about Proverbs, and I could list lots of other interesting information where I could tell you about Proverbs, what you need to know. I could give you the history into the book, and I could tell you about the geography at the time that it was written, and I could give you lots and lots of facts. But I have to ask the question, so what? Why do Proverbs matter? And I think this is actually the only question worth asking as we start this series. Well, in the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, I don't know if you remember from the structure, this is part of a series of poems of a father to a son, where he's beseeching him to seek for wisdom. And here in Proverbs chapter 4, there are these 3 verses which the father is desperately trying to encourage the son. Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget my words or turn away from them. Do not forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. Though it cost you all you have, get understanding. This is a passionate plea from a father to a son. This isn't just, hey, maybe you want to thinking about wisdom. Maybe it's a good idea. Maybe you want to, think about it this year. This is a passionate, please think about wisdom. This is important. Though it costs you all you have, get understanding. Proverbs chapter 3 says, she, referring to wisdom, is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. Those who hold her fast will be blessed. There's lots of proverbs that talk about wisdom being the way to life. It's the way to a good life. It's the way to a blessed life. It's the way to the life that God has called you to live. On the flip side, there is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. Throughout the whole book of Proverbs, you have a contrast between Lady Wisdom, this way of living right that leads to life, or the alternative, choosing folly, and that way leads to death. So the first reason why Proverbs matter is it's life and death, according to Proverbs. You're choosing wisdom and you're choosing life, or you choose folly and you choose death. Which one will you choose in 2024? Thinking about this choice that we have between choosing wisdom and choosing folly, it reminded me of this text in Deuteronomy where Moses gives the people the same choice. This day I call the heavens and the earth as witnesses against you that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life so that you and your children may live. This is the same appeal that the author of Proverbs gives to us as we start these series. Listen to Proverbs. Listen to the wisdom that God has for you, because in it you will find life, you will find happiness, you will find joy. However, we get to the end of the book of Proverbs, and we find this really interesting passage in Proverbs chapter 30. It says, I am weary, O God. I am weary and worn out, O God. I am too stupid to be human, and I lack common sense. I have not mastered human wisdom, nor do I know the Holy One. This is a really somber thought as we get to the end of the book of Proverbs, because you think, Proverbs, Solomon, it's the wisest man who ever lived. Surely by the end of the book, he's figured it out. I actually went back to the original language because I thought, what's this saying, I'm too stupid to be human? It actually has the word stupid in Hebrew. Like, that's not a mistranslation. The New International and the King James translates it as I'm a brute of a man, because the word stupid has the implication in Hebrew of being animalistic. And they don't like the idea of actually saying I'm stupid. So they translate it in some of your versions as I am a brute of a man. But actually, the Hebrew says, I am too stupid to be human, which is why I really like the New Living Translation here. That's what it says. He gets to the end of the book, and he goes, I haven't figured this out. Like, I'm supposed to be wise, and I'm not. I've fallen. I've got this wrong. I've failed. And why this matters so much is that while I want to encourage you so much to seek wisdom, I don't want also to turn Proverbs into some kind of guilt trip for people, okay? Because that's the other thing that can happen. Here's the things you need to do to live a good life. And you go, oh, I didn't get that right. Oh, it's another thing that I'm not doing right. It's another thing that I'm not living up to. It's another area in my life where I'm failing. We're humans, and therefore we're sinful. And therefore, we're never going to be able to live up to wisdom. And actually, I find this encouraging that Proverbs, we get to the end of the book and they say, I still haven't got it, but I'm still on this journey of seeking wisdom. I'm looking for wisdom. So if we can't actually find it because we're too stupid to be human, what's the point? Where is the solution? Well, in Isaiah, we see this text. Isaiah chapter 11, verses 1 to 3, it says, a shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots, a branch will bear fruit. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and of understanding, the Spirit of counsel and of might, the Spirit of the knowledge and fear of the Lord, and he will delight in the fear of the Lord. This is one of the Bible texts in the Old Testament that starts to point to a prophetic future that isn't visible at this point in the Old Testament, but is an idea that one day someone will come who can live up to what wisdom is all about. And when we get to the New Testament, we find that this is a text that is talking about Jesus. 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 30 puts it perfectly for us. It's because of him that you are in Christ Jesus, who has become for us wisdom. Jesus is the personification of wisdom. So what? I gave you 2 reasons. First of all, it's about life and death. Choose life. Choose to live wisely. But also, wisdom is about Jesus. This is the way to become more like Jesus, to seek wisdom. In 2024, you have a choice. What sort of person do you want to be? Do you want to just carry on the way you've been, just going through the day-to-day motions? Or do you want to seek the abundant life that God has for us? If we choose to seek after wisdom, then we choose to learn to be more like Jesus. And I want to encourage you as you walked into 2024 to be people who are committed to being more like Jesus as we seek to follow his character and learn from his wisdom. And that's why I think our final song fits in so well with what we're talking about today. Because wisdom is not about us just trying hard. Wisdom is not just about more things that we have to do, more rules that we have to follow, more guilt because we haven't lived the way that we want to live. Choosing wisdom is choosing to be like Jesus and to follow him and to follow his path for our lives. And so as our final song now, we're going to sing about the fact that it's not in our own strength that we seek wisdom. We do it in the name of Jesus.